Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel, Energy by Jessica. I like to call this just a portal of divine intervention and intuitive conversations. Step into the unknown. I'm really excited to be here with Miss Toni Nagy. Toni and I go way back, and we'll get to that. But right now, I just want to say, wow, what an amazing woman you are. And I feel very honored that you took the time to talk to me right now. You are just an inspiration, I think, for me and for so many others. So I do want to say thank you for all the work that you do. You are so many things. So I guess I'll just start off by the list. You're a stand-up comedian, you're a writer, you're a film director, you have your own production company, you have your own dance studio, and you really have a mission to educate the world through another avenue, through humor and through dance and through so much more. And I just have to say, it's really such an inspiration to watch you all the time. So thank you so much for being here with me.
Yay. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. And we do go way back since like high school times. And I just have to say, like, girl, you are still the same, radiate the same sunshine. You've always been such like a kind heart. I have to say, like every time I think of all of our interactions that we've had throughout our years, it's always been like this pure energy, just wanting goodness for everybody. Oh, it's so amazing to see where you are now in this moment in terms of creative expression. Do you think, like, if you reflect back to us in high school, is this kind of how you saw your path unfolding?
Ooh, I don't think I had a vision of my future then. I definitely wouldn't have thought of myself as being artistic or even creative in any way. So that was not something that I was like projecting out into the future at all. Um, I actually think I wanted to be a therapist.
Technically, like a therapist now, with how you are talking to the world and educating them and helping us process all these emotions and showing us, so much. I mean, there is probably that part of you that is expressed in everything you do.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I educate myself and then I share my education with people. Um, because sometimes I change my mind or sometimes, something develops. So I don't know. I do think it's interesting this idea of like teaching because I actually don't think you can teach anyone anything, even though I genuinely am a dance teacher. Like that is like what I do. I'm not teaching anyone anything. I'm just like in a room and I'm sharing my experience or I'm sharing what I have discovered for myself and whether or not that's applicable for others, that's on them. I think we teach ourselves by being witnessed by another person.
Okay. And I mean, when you do your dances, you do these, what I tend to believe for me is education, because a lot of those topics, like I just never had an interest in the politics or the way that you present it. I do feel educated. I'm like, damn, this is like stuff that's taking me to another level. Like I get it now. I understand it. And like, I feel that many of us in the, well, let's just say even in America, we just went through life not really caring about those really important topics. And the way that you express it, it's like, dude, we need to really check this, like go down so deep. Is that something that you plan ahead of time, or is this kind of like a channeled experience when you're doing your dances and talking?
Okay, so I feel like there's two things worth mentioning. One is that Americans are programmed and conditioned to not understand their history, to not be curious about our foreign policy, to not understand economics in a deep way, not just the mathematics of it. This is an intentional effort upon upon the populace. It is not advantageous to the status quo if Americans are educated on the American empire. That's just like not going to be good. So when I don't think like people don't care. I think they're programmed not to explore it because there's also a lot of rhetoric and I think gatekeeping through language and through culture where it's like, oh, well, if you're not an expert on politics, like you can't really talk about politics. Or if you didn't like do macroeconomics, like you're not going to understand this, you know? And I think that that is the fault of academia to not understand or not make available like how important it is for every single person to understand all of this on a deep level. I mean, it's like how many people really understand their taxes? How many times are you signing a piece of paper you do not understand? How many times are you seeing some sort of like agreement that you're, for your iTunes and it's a truly like 40 pages of legal jargon? And you're like, I guess I agree because like music. So I think that is all part of the psyop, the psychological torment and torture of people.
Hmm.
And so for me personally, I was a philosophy major in college, and I was very taken by two philosophers in particular. I mean, philosophy is also deeply influenced by other people. Like if I were to talk about Plato, I have to talk about Socrates, I have to talk about aphasia. Like these are lineages of
Hmm.
information, but I do think if you look at the Platonic dialogues, because Plato was the one writing down the dialogues, that he was receiving the download from Socrates, who was receiving the download from this woman Aphasia, and probably other ascendant masters and wise people in the East. The whole idea of these Platonic dialogues was simplicity, was having conversations that could be understood. Because according to Socrates, you never wanted, like, he was not a proponent of writing things down. Because if you were to write something down and commit it to paper, the engagement of that between the reader and the person who wrote it is dead. Like that writer can't defend their words, that writer can't explain their words. There's no dialogue. So Socrates was very against the written word because he believed in the power of dialogue and conversation, like face-to-face conversation where you can go back and forth with a person or a group of people. Oration was the ethos of ancient Greece. Like they were telling stories. People would memorize the Odyssey and then they would tell it to you. People weren't reading. And the danger of reading was misinterpretation, according to Socrates. So Plato, who was his student, was like, I'm gonna write shit down because I think people need to know this forever. So there's an irony in writing down the philosophy of Socrates. It was like, don't write anything fucking down.
Oh my God, that's so
We have
funny.
to keep talking. So why am I saying this? I do think like the idea of simplicity is really important in the sense that if something is overcomplicated, it means you don't actually understand it.
Right,
And you
right.
see this, people talking about spirituality, people talking about business, if they're like my ROI and my dividends and my externalities and blah, blah, blah. It's like, do you actually know what you're talking about? Or are you just repeating words and phrases that you've heard like when people talk about politics, all I hear is sound bites.
Yeah,
Const Even from quote unquote educated people. I'm like, I've heard this. I've heard
right. And
everything
you
you're
like,
saying, I've heard multiple times.
yeah, absolutely. And it is like a program because it's just repeated and continuously repeated. And I think now we're in an age, and what you do is like stop and think, people, like, what does this actually mean? What are your values? What are your truths? Because like you say, simplicity, what is it to be a good person? What is this connection to heart? What have we lost and what do we need to regain? And I think when you put stuff out there, it is overwhelming. But at the end of the day, it's like you grasp it because it's the foundation of our systems and we're changing them by knowing and learning and at least being aware of the stuff. And then we have the freedom to choose the next level, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there is this quote about Buddhism, and I wish I remembered who said it, but some monk said it to me. And so I'm sure he heard it from another monk, but he said that the hardest thing about Buddhism is that it's so simple.
Mm, mm,
And it's actually simplicity that is the most intimidating because it means that we have to see truth. And it
mm,
means that we actually can't like dodge it. And so I do think that when we talk about values, when we talk about politics, when we talk about all these things, there's already a deep knowing that we all have. Everyone knows everything. Everyone knows everything,
mm.
but a lot of what we know is incredibly painful. So it's like funny. I've gotten into arguments with people about this, but like this concept of stupidity, and some people are just dumb. Like some people are just genuinely stupid. And I get that they're like presenting as dumb, but
Mhm.
I think it's actually just the deep fear of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Deep
Mm-hmm.
fear of having to like sit and embody the suffering and the chaos and the confusion. There's another philosopher who I love, Spinoza, and he talks about confused emotions. And
Mm.
that most of like human foibles can be pinpointed at this idea of confused emotions. And that I do think is a lot of what's happening, like a willful ignorance, a
Mm.
confused emotion, because easier to believe, oh, yeah, I trust that like ICE is just like protecting me. And cool. Like I'm gonna just trust ice
Right.
and that's fine. And then I don't have to think about ice. I don't have to contemplate it. And I don't have to feel the pain of like, oh, what? Like people are being taken from their homes and then the men are being deported for slave labor and the women and children are being sold for sex trafficking.
Oh my God, I know, I know. And how do you, I know that you are, well, first, before I continue on that, I do want to also talk about this knowing because I know that you have done a lot of this spiritual work as well and gone into so many layers of your existence, your spiritual existence from past life. I know that you also, and that's something that I'm very passionate about, is, connecting with this field and being able to see the soul as a whole, at least from your own experience. And so, all of this contrast, there's also this like development of, getting more in tune and connected to a deeper purpose, a deeper knowing, doing the healing process, being able to be with those emotions, right? Like, but my goal with these conversations and talking about energy is that there's a freedom and going into the darkness, right? To be able to release yourself and be okay and then get to that place of forgiveness so that we can move in as a culture to change kind of like, what I mean? I think we all have to do our own internal work. Would you say that that's like the first step?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think the thing that people are constantly doing is trying to distance themselves from the collective. And if you were to look at everything that is going on, the genocides, the war, the rape, all of it, this is a collective issue. It's not an individual issue. This is part of the human collective, the collective consciousness. And like something I see people saying a lot is like, if I was a billionaire, I would not be acting like this. If I was a billionaire, I would be helping people. If I was blah, 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 blah. You don't actually know that because you're not a billionaire. And you and me, we all have a hoarder mentality in us. It just depends on what you hoard. Like for me personally, I am a food hoarder because I was like malnourished as a kid. And so I will always take the bigger slice. Always, like if I'm dividing things in half, I will take more. Like I have this tendency to hoard food, even though like I have abundance in my kitchen, I will still hoard food from my own family. Like I think like I did like when my kid was little, I would give her the extra kale because I'm like, okay, I want you to be robust. But now that she can genuinely almost kick my ass, I'm like, no, I'm taking the extra kale. Like, fuck you. Like, you're on your own, kid. The kale
So
goes in
you
my
can't get rid of the program or what? You just accept it? I mean, what do we do about these programs? That's the main thing. It's like, because I talk about the collective consciousness and I'm like, I went through my, like, whoa, I went through the dark night of the soul. Wow. Like, I know that there's a connection to this other source. There's this beautifulness. There's a evolution. I feel so connected to the spirit world. And I know that there's a purpose. Like, I'm talking about my purpose is to do something. Like, that was the reason I started this. And I am not a profi speaker. I have no idea. I'm just doing because my spirit's like, do something because this is all insanity, right? So, I mean, I think as much as many people just like can activate that somethingness or get inspired to like figure out what to do, because I don't want to feel helpless, right? I mean, what is your psyche? Because you are so deep in it.
Well, I think like what I'm saying is that when you understand the hoarder in you,
Okay.
you understand the hoarder in Jeff Bezos, you understand the hoarder in Elon Musk, then no longer are you separating yourself from these people. You're
Mm,
not dehumanizing them. You're not being like, I would never. You're actually
mm,
saying, I see how that can happen that
mhm.
scale because I too can hoard. And people, maybe they hoard shoes. I don't know. Everyone hoards
I'm
something.
trying to think, what do
So
I wear? I'm not sure.
everyone is selfish about something. Everyone hoards something. Everyone preserves themselves in some way,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
you have to do the work to see your tendencies and where it comes out. And it's all on a spectrum, just like everything is on a spectrum. And then you can say, oh, here is my hoarder tendency. I'm going to instead like try to do my best to mitigate it or accept it or see it or whatever. I witness it today. I do something about it tomorrow, but I don't ignore it. I don't act like it's not happening. And then I use that to understand the motivations of others because we have to understand the motivations of others in order to heal as a collective. And
Right.
every time you separate yourself and say, I don't ever, I'm love and light, I'm this, I'm that, then you're actually denying your own humanity and the humanity of others because you're seeing them as other. You have to understand how you could murder in order to understand murder.
Mm.
I'm not going to murder someone, but I understand how it can happen. I understand that primal rage. I can feel it. I can tap into the potential. I'm not going to dig it up, but I know that we all, it's like everyone has to have the potential of murder in order for murder to be so ubiquitous.
Yeah, I
Everyone
think that's the big
has the
scale. It's like we're one. So just like starting off with the reality for people that don't have this, conversations and want to do something or say, okay, like I can't look at it. I can't, but I mean, I think what you're saying, it all begins with just being able to look at it and recognize that it's happening and at least acknowledge it as being part of this oneness. And do you believe in the feeling of like, okay, if I'm like elevating my vibration or my understanding, is that doing something to the whole then?
Okay, well, let's say you go into a store and you have someone that's like working at the store and you're in a bad mood and you're rude to that person. And that person is like, what the fuck? Why did that happen? And then that person like feels like kind of personally attacked. And then the next person comes and then they're rude to that person. And then that person is like, oh, what the hell? And then they're rude to their kid because energy is a contagious exchange. And the same thing is with kindness, you know?
Mhm.
I will never go into a public space. I mean, unless I'm like incredibly like destitute. I will never go into a public space and not be kind to the people I interact.
Mhm. Mhm. That's right there, the most
I will
beautiful thing.
never get on the phone with a customer service person and not be kind. And if I am so frustrated, I'll say, "Hey, I'm super frustrated. I've called 17 times. I know that has nothing to do with you. I am in a mood. I'm
Mm.
frustrated, and that is like where I'm at right now." I will make sure that is clear. I am emotionally responsible for my own impact on
Yeah.
others as much as I humanly can. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Our
and I've had these
emotional
discussions.
vibration
Yeah,
affect.
exactly. Like I want to normalize these discussions about the field and recognizing that every little step that we take within ourselves is creating an impact, is doing something, right? That we can at least recognize I can do something, feel like more empowered for action. But the field, what is, I mean, you have worked with energy workers, shamans, and you do and embody this type of work, right? Is that something that you use as a practice for yourself or for your attunement?
I have a very intense personal practice. Yeah, I mean, I think that all right. I was at this meditation retreat and I remember I was, sitting in meditation and like things started to get like really like psychedelic and there was like this like blue light or something. And I was like, wow, what's up with this blue light? And I was just like, oh, what is this? Like, is this enlightenment? I know that wasn't enlightenment, but I was like, wow, I'm like really good at meditating.
Mhm.
I talked to the monk about it, and he was like, "Yeah, that's just like your brain relaxing for
Mm,
like the first time in 30 some odd years, you know? So it's like you're when you like are meditating and like psychedelic things happen, you don't follow that. That is not source. That is not it. That's just like your brain. You keep
mhm,
with the practice, you keep with the meditation, you keep with the deep connection to the source energy. So it's like I think there's a lot of ways in which like in quote unquote spiritual circles like people get distracted by the psychedelics, right?
Mm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the brain is, oh, what is this? Or like an entity, or I saw a ghost, or yeah, I believe in all that. I believe in fairies, I believe in ghosts, I believe in
Mm-hmm.
mermaids. Sure, I believe in all of that. I am open to it all, but that is not a spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
That is just being open to
Other
dimensions,
dimensions, yeah.
or the radical, possibilities of existence. I am open to all of that, but like I don't delude myself in thinking that's a spiritual practice. Like the only spiritual practice is your connection to source and your devotion to that. That is your spiritual practice.
Mm.
So, yeah, like I'm into the occult. I'm into all of it on
Right.
a deep level, and I'm very curious. But I think that a genuine spiritual practice is like within stillness and silence.
Yeah,
And
and I mean for you especially because I've in the last years really just created this ritual for myself in the meditating and have found so much inner peace and stillness and connection. Yeah, it's such a beautiful gift, and I think that's like this transformation for me is now just being able to share it. It's almost like a soul, like it definitely is for me, and that might sound cliche, but it's like this new level of purpose as me, as this spirit in this lifetime and what I'm doing. But it's more of like coming home. Like it's a beautiful feeling of peace. But you being so externally out there and exposed and and speaking so many issues, I mean, for you, you definitely have like a rigid practice, right? Like do you want to share a little bit of your routine? Like how do you stay grounded? Because I mean, it's definitely so wild, this energy and everything you do.
no, my practice is long. Like I wake up and then I have like the first thing I do is like a gratitude practice and then a visualization practice. And then I get out of bed and then I have these like, like exercises that I do that I learned at the Buddhist Retreat Center. And then I get into the body and then I do my prostrations where I bow and I bring my third eye to the ground and I practice humility and intention. And then I do a seated meditation practice. Then I start my day. And then at night, I do the prostrations, I do the meditation, and then I do another gratitude, visualizing. Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, it's like I can't, like, if someone's like, let's meet at 9, I'm like, okay, I gotta get up at 7:15, you know? That's
Oh
why
yeah.
it takes a while.
Yeah. It's a beautiful gift to give ourselves. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like with the somatic dancing, how amazing is that? Wow, what a mission. I mean, I've definitely healed a lot through mirror work and dancing. Like it was kind of like when I was shaking all this trauma out is where I had so many realizations as I was looking in the mirror. It's like I woke something up through the movement, not knowing what I was doing. This was many years ago. But now in understanding this practice is
Didn't know what you were doing.
oh, there you go, right? Yeah, because that's what it's about. I was connecting and releasing the trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so powerful. And how, I mean, is this is one of your passions or it's like it's how effective it is and you're sharing it with the world or how have people received it?
Well, I mean, I've been studying dance for a while, just like dance as an art form. And it was really during COVID where I had to like teach online and people wanted to like move, but they didn't have a dance background.
Mm,
Didn't have any training. And so I was like, oh, how do I move with people who have no training over the computer? Because it's like when you're doing a dance class, like you have training in order to protect your body,
mm,
like you're asking people to do things, but if like you're not genuinely turned out from the hips or you're not, your tailbone isn't dropped, like all of these things that you would be doing in a dance class, if your alignment is off, it's going to harm you, so you have to like, it was hard for me to be like, I can't see your body or what you're up to. So that was kind of the beginning of a somatic practice for me was like how can I move with people in a way that like they are their own medicine person
mm,
and they feel safe and the prompts that I'm giving them are about their own personal exploration with the body
mm,
rather than like, oh, this is a form and you are copying a form. So
mm,
like the somatic movement I was doing, it was very the prompts were universal, but the experience was individual.
mm,
And I just kept doing that and kept having classes like, as things opened up again in person. And like a lot of what I do when I do like in-person retreats or in-person practice is like I ask someone, what is a body part that is causing you harm, or an acute injury or whatever's going on? And they'll like say their body part. And then I'll say, what are you working on emotionally? And they'll say something. And then I will come up with like movements in
Mm-hmm.
order to work on what they just said. And the thing about pain is that it is universal. I've never had someone say something that was so specific that everyone else is like, I don't relate. Everyone's experienced neck pain or experienced shoulder pain or back pain or hip pain or blah, 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 blah. And so every time I work with people, I come as open. I'm open. I'm not like, this is the way we do our shoulders. I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do our shoulders that day. It depends on who's in the room. It depends on what they said they were working on. So I've never taught the same workshop twice because I cannot, because everything is different and everything is evolving and everything is changing. And it's a co-creation of who I'm in the room with and what those people need at that moment. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what like, for me personally, like genuine facilitation is being so deeply present with people that you're listening. And I don't come with an agenda. I cannot come with an agenda and listen.
I know that is like for me, freedom and fear. Like that is my new thing now where I have to trust the unknown. I mean, I've been working a lot with Joe Dispenza. I was at his retreat here in Switzerland, but I mean, something just clicked to understand that my whole life I've been preparing myself with everything, like everything, what am I going to say? Like, how's it going to look? And then I recognize like I am better when I'm just in the moment and allowing and trusting. But that took a long time to get to that place. And I feel like as we start to develop like our creative expression and connection to source, to ourself, the moment is all we have. And it's such a precious feeling.
Yes, and to echo what you're saying, like I know what I'm talking about because I have been studying for a
Mhm.
long time the human body. I didn't just like be like, oh, I think I'm gonna like try this out. I was like, no, 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 no. This has been like 25 years in the making. So
Right.
I think like we all start with preparing, and as you should. It
Yeah.
would be incredibly irresponsible to not prepare for something if you don't have vast experience.
Yeah.
Like, I would never like go on stage and be like, I don't know what I'm gonna say. Let's just see what comes out. No, no, I'm still preparing. And I know there are people who don't have to prepare anymore. They're like, I just go on stage and
Yeah,
genius
but
comes out.
you don't prepare word for word. Is it just like a feeling, okay, like this is what I'm going to say, or do you have a script? Or are you kind of script based?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm performing live, I know what I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I know you do so
I
much different
know.
things. Okay.
I am aware of what I'm going to say. There's room for play, there's room for things to shift, but like I learn my
Mm,
comedy set, If I'm
right.
doing the show, I write the show down and I learn it.
Yeah.
Um, but with videos, like sometimes I have no idea what I'm going to say, and sometimes I write a script. There's
Oh,
a
okay.
lot of information that like I want to get out. I write it down.
Yeah, okay, good. I was gonna ask you, do you think is that like a channeled thing? But God, all the work that you put into freaking like presenting the world with information in a different way. That's so
It
amazing.
depends. It depends on how deeply I know what I'm talking about. Some things I'm just like, I'm just gonna talk about it, see what comes out, and then edit it later. Other times I like do research. I write
Mhm.
down the stats, like I write down the information and then
Yeah.
I remember it and then I do it.
Yeah, because if anybody has not seen any of her Instagram videos, Toni's things are just wow. You walk out of there a different person every time. I literally sent my kids to watch with me, my husband too. Like, and the most amazing is when I saw on Facebook in Austria, people were sharing your stuff. I was like, this is legit. So
Yeah.
cool. You're gonna have to come here sooner than later. Do a little retreat or something. That would be amazing. And you're also doing now the grape culture, you and your friend. What was her name again? Sarah.
Sarah, but she goes by Serafina Supernova.
Oh God, what amazing goddesses you both are. Stressful or what is the experience where you guys go out there and represent for so many women who have kept quiet, I would say. I mean, that's
Yeah, so basically, I've been doing stand-up comedy for a while. And then I wrote a one-person show that I perform, and then I wrote a two-person show that I did with my daughter. So my one-person show is called Men Come Inside of Me.
Oh my
It's
God.
about the men that it's about the men inside of me. It's basically looking at like quote unquote toxic masculinity and how I really relate to it. And I am a man. Like I am a toxic man inside in many ways. And so it's the exploration of my own inner man.
Okay.
But I like play all these characters, these male characters. It's really honestly,
It's
it's really
all different parts of you that come out.
yeah, it's like a fun show. Like it's
Is it
fun.
online?
No, I will not put it online until I'm
Okay.
done. Yeah.
Okay.
So then I had a show that I did with my daughter called Go to Your Womb.
Oh, I saw that.
And it was about like parenting, but basically about like humanizing the mother.
Mm.
So we did this show for about 2 years, and that was really fun. That was really interesting to like perform with my 12 and 13-year-old
She looks
daughter.
amazing. I know I've seen that too. Wow, you're such an amazing mom. How does she feel about, sorry, just about this direction that you are in your life? I mean, that is, I mean, I'm
Well,
sure it makes
she's
emotions.
like, I used to blog about her when
I
she was
remember.
little. So
Mm-hmm.
I blogged about her for a really long time, and like she knew that and like would sometimes like read them and like be interested in what was going on. And then I that turned to videos, and she used to always like watch my videos, and she was just like, "What's this about?" And so she's always been like curious. I mean, now that she's a teenager, she's like the least curious in what I'm up to. But she's funny about it. Yeah, I mean, it's like because I have like comedy bits about her, and then I tell her my bits, and she's like, okay. But
Amazing.
yeah, she's a pretty I feel hashtag blessed, but also like I really thought about how I was gonna parent before I parented. I wasn't just like, what? I was like pretty conscientious about it and like how was I gonna discipline and how was I gonna regulate emotions for myself in order to teach her emotional regulation? Like I was like thinking in a
You're
deep
a
way.
thinker. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then you had the third script that
yeah,
you
great.
made.
Yeah, you asked me. Sorry, I
Yeah,
totally
sorry, I also interrupted. Sorry.
So I met Sarah at a festival, and she's younger than me. She's like, younger millennial. And she was telling me about this footage she had where she was like processing her grapes in real time, that she was like filming herself. This was like before Insta stories, before TikTok. Like she just was like going to a camera and like filming herself, like processing what had just happened to her the night before that,
Oh, whoa. Oh
like
my
this footage.
God.
And then she told me she had this footage of like her boss had sexually assaulted her, and so then she filmed herself like from below, going like secretly. She went into the office and she confronted her boss and quit her job
Oh, wow.
after sexually assaulting her. And so like she was like, "Yeah, I like tried to make a film with it, but like never it didn't really like pan out, but she's like, I had all this footage and blah 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 blah." But she was like an art student and doing experimental film, and I understood. I was like, that footage is really priceless, that real time. And again, like I can't, it's like I don't know if you ever watched the movie Truth or Dare with Madonna.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
Rewatch it,
Mm-hmm.
because this is before reality TV that she did this. Like, actually, Truth or Dare is, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Madonna and whether or not she's like part of the Illuminati, but that film was so authentic because it was before the presentation of the self on film.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna watch it.
Very interesting. It's like this gonzo verite style that you would never be able to replicate ever again because of the
Mm-hmm.
cultural shift. So with Sarah's footage, it was the same thing. She was filming herself before the awareness of filming the self, that now everyone
Wow.
has. There was no like posturing or pretense or I don't know, very authentic. And
Right. And
so
then she got the call to do that at that time. That was
yeah.
definitely a higher call. So you took that footage and
Well,
created.
she just told me about it, and I was like, wow, that's really impressive. And then we had this like great weekend together. I really connected with her as a person. And then I'm like driving home, And I'm thinking of her and the footage, and I'm like, we should write a show, a comedy show about rape, and I call it Grape Culture because you can't say the word rape on social media, and rape is a cultural phenomenon. It's not like an individual thing that happens. And
Mm,
rape
mm.
culture is so ubiquitous in culture. It's like part of capitalism. It's part of the prison industrial complex. It's part of the medical industrial complex. It's part of the military industrial complex. Like domination without consent actually is our culture. Like we
Yeah.
live in a rape culture. So I like called her up, even though we just hung out all weekend. I was like, "Do you want to do a show with me called Grape Culture, a comedy?" And she was like, "Yes." So then I
Wow.
had her come see my other shows so she could see like my vibe, because my vibe is all about like lots of costumes, lots of characters, like making a big mess, sketches, stand up, storytelling, like
Wow.
clowning. And
Wow.
she was like, absolutely. And so we just wrote the show
Wow.
and then brought it to the Hollywood Fringe Festival, brought it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and then have been just like touring it around.
Unbelievable. And when the people are very receptive to it, I mean, it's expanding. How do you feel about putting such strong topics out in the world? I mean, not to focus on the contrast or the haters, but how do you push through that? Or do you have like this energy of fear? Because I feel like a lot of this topic of fear is very prevalent now in the world of like, I don't know what to say, what not to say. And obviously it causes us to do nothing. But how do you work with this energy? Do you like intentionally, consciously like deflect it, or you just don't even focus on it?
I feel like I'm very confident in my intention.
Mm,
No, and my intention is about like genuine healing and not
mm,
just like blaming men. The show, men have come and men cry at the show. They-
mm,
I've never had a man be like, I felt so upset and I felt like you were blaming me or shaming me. Like we really try to get into the psychology and the cultural phenomenon of this topic and like come at it with like the most like radical compassion we have. And
mm,
that is like every single scene is rooted in like a compassionate look at what is happening. And but
mm,
it's funny, like a lot of funny things are happening and like absurd things. So I think that like when you come to the show, people, it's a vibe. It is a vibe. You do not leave in a bad mood. 100% people do cry. We've never had a show and people haven't like cried at some point, like some
mm,
people. But people also laugh a lot, and we leave that. Like both Sarah and I are trauma practitioners. We both work with somatics. Like we're not just like, what's happening? We're not irresponsible with what
mm,
we're doing. It's not just about like triggering people or like saying outlandish things and being like, now you deal with it. You know,
mm,
it's
mm.
it's much deeper than that. And I think the other thing that we do in every community we go into, we offer a workshop. And
Wow.
that is a big part of it. It's like you come see the show, and then the next day there is a workshop. So if you have things in your body that were like ignited, like a lot of people will come to the show and be like, wow, I had not thought about like this personal assault that I experienced like since it happened. And so like we don't want to just leave people with that. It's like, no, come to the workshop, be part of community, whether or not you've been assaulted or assaulted another person. That's not a prerequisite. It's the journey is to like come and look at trauma through the body, but like our intention is to create community and genuine like collective healing.
Mm, my God, that is so beautiful. I love it. And I swear you guys are going to be here. I know in Salzburg, I'm inviting you guys. I mean, I just feel like that is another way of raising the frequency of our planet and just of people individually, one by one. And is your intention, because I feel that through my own personal healing process, that being able to bring these like traumatic experience to the surface made me stronger. This became my superpower. So your intention behind this is to bring awareness to these really real topics and help people kind of clear that out of that trauma out of their bodies, and that they then do something else with that. Do you see like then the result after all of this is that now they have their voice, like their throat chakra is activated, or they tap in with their hearts, or they have purpose? Do you see that as like a cycle that it goes to the next for these individuals or people from healing?
Well, I mean, I guess you would have to ask people, and I do think that like healing is a lifetime journey.
Mhm.
I don't know anyone that's like, I'm healed, I'm good,
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. but I do think that I've gotten a lot of feedback about how it ignites something. I mean, anything can ignite anything, so but what I want to do is create a container and space for like deeper conversations and collective work around these subjects because I do think that um like a grape culture is something that impacts every single person. It's not just like, oh, I got date raped at a college party. Like no, if when you really look at the cultural impact of it and you look at it as a macro lens, you're like every single person is touched by this subject. So how do we heal from that collectively? It's going to be through conversation and through a deeper understanding of like the self in order to not perpetrate, in
Hmm.
order to recognize like the grapiness within the self and the self graping, like the amount that is something we talk about a lot in the show. How often you abandon the self, or how often you'll be like, well, I'm in a marriage and this guy pays for everything. And so he wants to fuck and I don't, but like, I feel this unconscious thing that I owe him my puss because of my body being an object. And this is a capitalist commodified like system. And so I now must offer him something, even though like I don't want to do that. And like now I'm disassociating, but it's your husband and you love him. And there's plenty of times you do like having sex with him.
So deep. Yeah, it goes so many
But that
layers.
all the time. And that is a self like betrayal that like your body is like, ah. And then we just
Mm,
feel like it's fine. It's fine. This, obligation sex happens all the time in relationships, but like that is self-betrayal. That is self-denial. So it's like there are all these like micro moments that we do this within our sexual life, but it's not just about sex. It's deeper. But
hmm.
it is, I mean, like, but this is why the conversations are so important. And what is it to say to your partner who you love, like, I love you. This isn't a rejection of you. I am grateful for all you do. And yet, like, I don't want your dick right now. And that's
Yeah.
that. And I actually don't owe you my body. And like, but
Mm,
respect, I'll let you know when the mood changes. And
yeah, no, absolutely. And do you feel like your vibration is hopeful in these times? I mean, like what is your vibe for, let's just say the next couple of years? Like you continue doing what you're doing with purpose, right?
yeah, I mean, like, part of me does think of timelines a lot, and like, okay, we're on these like timelines and how do you switch timelines? I'm like, I need to get off this timeline.
That's a
It's like,
question, right? Well, they say, I mean, like transcending, like we can't like fight it. It's not like one against one. It's like somehow through these conversations, like elevating, like I feel like the more people like have this conscious, this bewusst in German, but like this realization, then slowly we transcend timelines. Like,
well, it's like there's like everything is infinitely possible, right?
mm-hmm.
Got to write down the tyranny of timelines so I don't forget it. Tyranny. So like, you know, let's say you get pregnant. There's one timeline where you have the baby, and there's one timeline where you have an abortion, and there's one timeline where you have a miscarriage or whatever, So all of those, the minute you get pregnant, all of those infinite possibilities happen. Uh,
Hmm.
and or potential possibilities are always happening. So we're always like splintering every decision made. This podcast, now we're in the timeline of this podcast where there was another timeline where you had a cold and we didn't do this and this never
Right.
happened. So I'm often like wondering, I'm like, I want to switch out of the tyrannical timeline that I'm on. And so I like keep holding the vibration and keep seeing the potential of something different because there is a timeline that isn't tyranny. There is a timeline of sustainability. There is a timeline of like a genuine like values that align with my spirit. That timeline exists. I just have to keep kind of being creative and envisioning it. And
Yeah, but I mean, if they say it like they say, who the hell is they? But anyways, like just studies show that what you focus on is what grows, right? So like When we keep on repeating, this is a perfect question because it's like you don't want to talk about it, because you're like perpetuating it, or you don't want to because you want to focus. Like I want to use my voice to focus on like expanding like into these other fields of energy and help people understand that we're multidimensional and that we have these gifts that we can actually like channel so much wisdom and like see something better and do differently. That's like what I feel like right now I want to focus my timeline on. But then I'm like, oh, but now I'm denying everything, and now it's just not, I'm not really facing the truth. So like, how do we maneuver this timeline? Is it like in and out, I feel?
Yeah, and I mean, it's like this concept of spiritual bypassing, right?
But is
And
it? Yeah, I know.
I do think it's a dance. I think it's a choreography. But like, let's take COVID for an example. There was a timeline with no COVID pandemic. That happened.
Hmm.
But there was enough timelines where COVID happened that like it was a strong paradigm that we all kind of went through, right? So there was like no denying that like this is hap something is happening, whether or not you believe the official narrative or have different ideas about what was going on. The collective was experiencing the narrative of COVID together.
Right.
And there are just some undeniable narratives. World War II, like this current genocide. These are undeniable narratives that are happening. So to be like, oh, this isn't happening, is
Yeah, no, I think it's happening, but having the power, here's what it is. It's flipping fear to action to empowerment because this paradigm what we're in now is causing many people to shrink and to like detach from their higher self or even empowering. And but others are like you that you're using your voice and your information to educate, right? So it's like we can still imagine.
okay. So what I was going to say is that when something is undeniable, you talk about it, right? And
Right.
you But when something is just a seedling, right? Like when there was like, remember there was like a monkeypox conversation. That was a seedling. And anytime I saw information about that, I would actively say out loud, not in my timeline. No.
Mm-mm.
So like if there's a seed where it's like, you know, gay marriage is there's a bill to ban gay marriage. There's a bill to ban interracial marriage. I will say not in my timeline, not in my timeline. Any kernel of something I see that I do not want in my timeline, instead of being like, oh my God, everybody, there's this potential da 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 da, I just truly just say like, not in my timeline. And
Oh,
maybe own irresponsibility because we have to be warned of the things that blossom, but also like a lot of things that I've said not in my timeline have not blossomed in my
oh,
timeline.
okay. You have the power. Put everything not in your timeline, please.
So all the seeds don't don't water a seed. If there is a plant, don't deny the plant, but don't water seeds. That's
Oh,
I
I
guess
like that. I like that. But now what do we do with this plant that exists? How do we operate with this in this timeline? Like let's like really have something here that we can share to everybody. How do we work with this timeline? Because it's like acknowledging it. I see it from a bigger scale as this is what's needed to raise to for people to wake up. I mean, I think that's clear, right? I think people recognize that without seeing the corruption, we would have never had these conversations. Like the intent to separate us is actually uniting us, hopefully. Like all of this is the bam that needs to happen where then people can find their own inner power again. I see it that way. It's like this is horrible, but people, I have hope in humanity. Like I hope that people can tap into their hearts. Like, is that
okay, so
spiritual bypassing?
no, I don't think so at all. I mean, like, I just like the things that give me hope are the things like when Donald Trump said that Haitians were eating dogs and cats, right? And then people made a fucking song.
Right. So,
People made some songs that slapped, like truly, and they made videos that slapped. And eating the dogs and eating the cats, like, actually brought me like so much laughter. Okay. Like I was like, every time something happens where people transform it and transmute it, that is what gives me hope. And there's these indigenous people in Australia where they work with invasive species. I mean, this happens all over, indigenous people all over the world. They will experience an invasive species, like a plant or
Mhm.
something that like
Mhm.
globalization brings to them.
Mm.
And rather than being like, this invasive species isn't happening and denying it, they learn to work with the invasive species. They learn to make
Mm.
ceremony with the invasive species. They make art with the invasive species. They learn to integrate, they learn about the invasive species and then
Mm.
integrate it. And that is how, like, there is a global cultural exchange that has been happening for thousands and thousands of years, as long as globalization has been at play, which has been a while, like mass migration is not new.
Mhm.
So I think that, like, the alchemy of art, the alchemy of spirituality, the alchemy of connection to source, like that is the hope. And I see that constantly.
Exactly. Exactly. It is, and that we are the alchemists,
Yeah.
that in this existence, if people can take away, is like, don't run away from it. Just find your own alchemy power, alchemic power, if that's even a word. But you know what I mean? It's like, no, like let's use this to empower ourselves and redefine, recreate a new version of our existence in this, in what's happening, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I saw this one video where there were all these people that had been detained by ICE, and then there was like this mass group, this movement of people that were outside, and they were just like, we're here.
Mm.
Like, you're not alone, you know? I
Mhm.
don't know if those people, I don't know if that helped. I don't know if those people are going to get deported. I don't know what's going to happen
Mhm.
with that specific circumstance, but I do know that those people felt seen. I do know
Mhm.
that those people felt cared for. They didn't feel alone. They
Yeah.
at least felt like, wow, there are people out there. And that is valuable. Like, I would rather they didn't go to detention centers and become slave labor. Of course, of course, of course. But if that is their fate, which God is willing it's not,
Mhm.
at least they will forever have that memory of people
Mm.
coming and caring.
Mm. Amen. Exactly. And I think that's the intention behind these conversations is like we all have a power within us. We can all do something. We can all be kinder, as you said. We can all reflect in our daily interactions. We can reflect what we're hoarding. We can see, be a little curious about other modalities to tapping into your inner self, connection with source. That we are in this oneness. And I hope, with what I'm doing, my little thing here, my little project, and what you're doing is just providing so much light, girl. And I really admire you so much. And I'm just so grateful that, that you bring so much wisdom to the world and to our home. And I know many other people. So thank you for doing that and committing your life, because that shit is not a joke. And I send you so much love and light because it's not easy to do what you're doing. You really are like the new paradigm. You are our hope.
Kind.
Tony Nagy Burp. Nagy. Notch. Oh my God. Wait, I just got to tell you a really funny story really quickly for the public. So, Tony, we were in New York like in a late 20s, just to end this conversation here. And I wanted to share this so bad because this was at the time where I left my job in California and I was like soul seeking. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And I think that was the last time we actually really saw each other. And where you had the vegetable powered bus, you were like skating around New York City, this cool ass chick, like, hey, what's up? Like just hanging out in New York, like always so cool with all the guys cruising through New York City. And anyways, I remember we hung out and I was telling you, I'm like, I don't know, I'm going through this crisis. You're like, girl, that's Saturn return. And I'm like, what is the Saturn return? And oh my God, like that, like what you were like the point in my life that gave me direction to go on this journey. I got the Saturn tattoo in Thailand
Oh,
after
say.
our New York experience. I was like, I'm going through my Saturn return. This makes so much, but it was a crazy journey. It was a lot of deep shit that came out. And but I want to say thank you for that because I think you don't recognize how many people you affect by your kindness, by your humor, by your words. And I really appreciate that. That was just like for me, you hold such a place in my heart. So thank you so much for that.
I'm obsessed. I love that for both of us. Amazing.
Oh my God, I love it. Oh my God. All right. Well,
Are
Tony,
you also a Capricorn?
well, I'm a Capricorn rising. Are you
Okay.
actually? what
I'm a
do
Capricorn, but wait, what is your sun sign?
I'm Scorpio. I'm
Yeah,
Scorpio
okay.
sun, Scorpio moon, but also a Cap. Oh, that's amazing. You connected because Dolly, I don't know, you remember. Anyways, Brennan is an astrologer. She's like, ask her what sign she is. Totally. Yeah. Capricorn, Capricorn. I love it.
Oh yeah, so you're double Scorpio, Capricorn rising.
Rising. Yeah.
Scorpio.
So I'm coming to this crossroads, like being out there, but also with my deep intuitive nature and connection to spirit and part of what I love to say is a phoenix, because I also got the phoenix here,
Okay.
which is, I got that in actually, yeah, in Thailand as well. But yeah, transformation. I think that's what our whole planet is going through. And I think as long as we continue to not be afraid and tap into our superpowers, as Tony is a reflection of that, then we can really make a lot of change and in a way, not have fun. Yeah, have fun doing it with balance, right? I think that's the main thing. So, girl, thank you so much for your time. Please, everybody,
Yes.
I mean, we could keep talking. I don't know about your time, but everyone can please check out Tony. I'll definitely put your link in there, your Instagram, and everything that you do is just really just changes the correction of the day, the direction of the day. So, thanks, girl.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.